when I started learning about philosophy, Philosophia, and Philo being the devotion and Sophia being wisdom or love. So it's that devotion to wisdom, devotion to love. You and I talked very briefly about Andrew Yang, and when he mentioned, he tweeted during his run that he thought that philosophers should be returned to the White House. I cheered. I fell off my chair. I'm like, we need the great intellectual minds of our time, the heterodox thinkers, the people who will question the commonly held beliefs that used to, back in the day, be in the market square, and the elders and the youngsters used to go and seek out, and the politicians seek out their wisdom and opinion. And becoming older is inevitable, but becoming an elder is a skill.
Yeah, it is a skill. And in general, we are failing to produce adults, that people are trapped in a kind of permanent adolescence. And the only people that we can trust to govern in such complex and perplexing times are the few who have figured out how to navigate these difficult things. We need philosophers. We don't need exclusively philosophers, but we need at least a commitment to philosophical rigor to be part of that conversation.
Well, how do we? I know we there's the Articles of Unity, and we can, all of us, help move that movement forward. You and I had talked about Andrew Yang and the potential free Andrew Yang hashtag, because I just think he's a tremendous individual with a ton of political potential that's unrealized, and I don't think it's going to be realized with the current DNC and how it's played out, and their choice, which seemed to me to be preordained beforehand, and the VP pick seems to be, at least to my mind, preordained beforehand. And there is, I have a fear that that eventually, at some point during that first term, if indeed that happens to be the case, and Joe Biden wins, that he will step down. And again, these are projections, and I have no for a fact. It's just based on everything that I've seen and witnessed. There is a really disturbing dystopia at play where the power mongers at the top are purporting to be the ones who are the champions of the people at the bottom. In fact, they're doing quite the opposite in closed rooms and in private.
Oh, I agree. And I think there's already an agreement for Biden to step down, and that the DNC is hoping we won't notice what they're up to, which, of course, is an absolutely frightening transition in the way governance works. Even as dysfunctional as it's been, this is a new level of dysfunction. So how is a question, and on one level, the answer is so obvious. And I think those of us, if you see, as I alluded to before, each candidate has an ironclad argument for their election, and that is the unacceptability of the other. And they are both right. And for anybody, if you see only one of their arguments and the other one is in your blind spot, then you will say, oh, well, the answer to what we have to do is simply clear, right? You will say either we can't allow Biden to drag this woke insanity into the White House because that will destroy America, and that's true. On the other hand, we cannot allow Donald Trump to politicize us into oblivion. Both of these things are un-American and not decent and too dangerous to even contemplate. So at the point that you see both sides and not just the one, you understand that each one is unacceptable, then the answer is, well, what would we have to do in order to not elect either of them? And the answer is all you have to do is believe that it's possible. And what makes it possible is a lot of people believing that it's possible. So how about we have that conversation of belief now? We learn that, as we've been taught by 2020 so many times already, and we're only halfway through, the impossible is just around the corner. So if we can just simply talk ourselves into saying, well, the two major parties forced us into this. They gave us non-viable options, which requires us to ask, what else can we do? we have to do something else. And it is ours to take back the White House, and from there to restore the republic to functionality. We've run off the end of the tape, and it is time.
I agree. And there is an urgency. I talk about the tyranny of the urgent. I think about the Articles of Unity. We currently lack consensus, even about matters of basic fact, scientific facts. Scientists are being cancelled and losing their jobs, livelihoods. I mean, I don't need to tell you of all people about that. And the current tools of our collective sense-making are seemingly unable to close this gap. And
yes.
This brink of economic catastrophe that we have seemingly been teetering on for quite some time now. How our manufacturing base and our reliance on we could talk about even corporate America has gone woke. Hollywood's gone woke, and it's like go woke or go broke. Like, what did we get? What did we get? Every app, every screen I turn on, it's just everywhere. So how can we galvanize this? How can more people? Because the two big voices on either side have control of the mainstream media and the newspapers, the broadcasting media, and it seems to be about the ratings and the money and the commoditization of our values.
Well, I mean, I think you're asking the right question. And in some sense, I don't believe that corporate America has gone woke. I believe it is doing what is expedient, which is to say it will broadcast the woke message in order not to be canceled and to get back to business as quickly as possible. And so I think people have not understood what a large fraction of those who claim to believe this stuff is actually accounted for by the same mechanism. People solving their own personal fears, addressing them by espousing beliefs that they don't hold, and then they will convince themselves that they do hold them so they don't have to explain to themselves why they lied. But once you realize that this is a fringe, and really a very tiny fringe, that's bossing around giant corporations, individuals, that is shaping society according to something that we have no idea how many people actually believe it, then the answer is, well, people are solving their own problems, and that looks like them saying what they don't believe out of cowardice. What does the opposite look like? Well, it looks like taking a risk to say what you do believe in spite of the fact that you may come out behind rather than ahead for doing so. And I think, this is a small example, but you and I both believe that the two major parties have delivered outcomes that are so unacceptable that we have to consider things like the Unity 2020 proposal, and we actually take a risk in so saying. By saying that, we are actually risking looking foolish. We are risking being blamed for some outcome, either of which will be terrible. And I think the point is, well, people who have preceded us have given up far more to protect the nation. This is a small price to pay, and it can be distributed. If more people join, the clearer it will be that actually we do have an opportunity to do something outside of the script. And really, at some level, if you get it, you don't have much of a choice. We have been delivered unacceptable options. The cost will fall heaviest on the young, who have longer to live in its shadow. It will fall heaviest on those who are oppressed and therefore not in a position to protect themselves financially from what's coming. So everything that we hold dear, and just the simple fact of compassion for those who are vulnerable, seems to require us to demand something different. And it's time for people to stand up.
I agree, and I hope more and more people find their voice and their clarity and join together, and and aren't too afraid of being told, well, if you go down this path, then you're going to elect this person again. Get behind this person, because that's the only. Well, one of the beautiful things about America is everyone above a certain age and meets the requirements gets to vote. So vote for whoever you would want to vote for. And if you silence people, I think this happened in England with Brexit, and I think we saw a large portion of that in 2016 with President Trump, is when you tell half of the population, or nearly half of the population, that they are wrong and their voice doesn't matter, that they are all, to use the terminology recently, which I don't like using, but neo-Nazis or white supremacists, or they're all bad people, or they're crazy because they believe in God, or that their opinion doesn't matter. They're gonna speak their mind in the ballot box when they pull that little curtain, which in England it is usually when you go and you pull the little curtain, you tick the box. And so it's no surprise that Jeremy Corbyn lost in England and Brexit was. I know there are many more factors to it. It's obviously not that simple, but we're a huge nation of very diverse people, and we have great strengths. And I seriously believe that, someone said to me when I think I'd retweeted you one day recently about the lesser evil and the animation, and someone wrote, "Oh yeah, been tried before, been tried." And I remember sitting in school, my history teacher telling me about one of the kings in England was about to fight a battle, and he saw a spider, and the spider kept trying to spin a web, and it kept and this king had fought 13 sieges or something like that, and he couldn't find a way to win the battle. And finally, as he was just mentally exhausted with trying to find a way to rally his troops and strategize how he would win this particular siege and battle, the spider spun the web. And that's where the phrase, if at first you don't succeed, try again. And just because it may have in a different formula been tried before, that is the reason why we must try again, and try in a different way. And like you talk about the ticket rather than the third party, the ticket right now is free. There is, in fact, the rewards to purchasing or buying a ticket, which you don't have to because it's free, is you get to have a seat at a new table and a new conversation that doesn't exclude either side, that's inclusive. And where I'm at, having just done a live stream inviting Antifa and the Proud Boys on, is I want those extremes. I think we should be bringing those extremes of society, or the perceived extremes, together, to have the difficult, challenging conversations, to hold that space, to listen with curiosity and mediate through our differences, and bring those experts in who know way better than I on how to moderate and mediate through those conversations. And if only for the fact that one side feels like they've been heard for a few seconds, then that behavioral barometer, if you will, may have been just tended and tempered a little. And I think that it all starts with self, and we can keep, the waveform, if you will, the movement, the patterns, the frequency, the harmonious nature of how we can share a little goodness, a little positivity, and move from hateful to grateful, and from striving to thriving.
No, it makes perfect sense. And the fact is, there's no guarantee, but in a moment where it is obvious, it should be obvious to everyone that the country is on the verge of tearing itself apart. It seems to me that our patriotic obligation is unity, and that the only position that will feel good in the aftermath, no matter what comes, succeed or fail, is to have tried. Anybody who didn't try in this moment, who couldn't muster enough imagination to see a different possibility, despite the fact that the major parties announced that they were unwilling to lead, Anybody who can't figure it out now, wow, I mean, I have a hopeless feeling about what that must be like, and I would say everyone else, it's time to wake up and get to work.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that answers the why question. And he who has a why can bear any how. So the how gets answered after the why. I think that was Rumi. So, answer the why. Do not question the why. Just answer the why, for why is the answer. And if we can find a way to come together and really galvanize what you're doing, just even the word unity. I mean, come on. Don't we all want a little more unity and unification?
It just feels good to even think in that framework at this moment. It's liberating to do it. And I must say, I like your formulation about that you should answer the why and the how will follow. That's really how things work. The why motivates the how. If you start with the how, you may well spin your wheels.
Yeah, it reminds me, I think it was Simon Sinek, I think his name is. He did a great TED presentation on business and how the why needs to be answered, I think it was, before the how and the rest of it. And many companies start from the concentric circles out to the middle rather than the other way around. And Apple is a great example of that. Making a difference. We believe we can make a difference. We believe we can create products that will change lives. And I think Unity 2020 has already started to shift perspectives and perceptions in the court and family homes of public opinion. And as it settles in more and people see more spoken word, written text, animation, the signaling, the virtuous signaling, not the virtue signaling, of what people are really coming together to do, because it takes a tremendous amount of people, a tremendous amount of effort. I don't know how you're doing it. I don't know how many people are involved. If you need my help in any way, I'm happy to help. I think more people should come together to help this, to try.
Thank you.
Try to find the how once we've answered the why.
And your conviction is clear, and we will call on you sooner than you know.